everyone. Today we got to play Origins First Builders. So this is actually our second playthrough, so we're super excited to kind of explain it to you. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because you like board games and that's what we do here. So Randy, tell us more about Origins.
All right, so Origins First Builders, it was a 2021 release. It has a Board Game Geek rating of 7.3.
Yeah.
And a Board Game Geek rank of 4145. It's 1 to 4 players, average length of 60 to 120 minutes. Age of 14 and up, designed by Adam Kwapinski, art by Zbigniew Umgelter and Alexander Zawado. And
wow, that was really good pronunciation, babe.
I'm sure it wasn't. Publisher was Board and Dice. It has an MSRP of $70, which is pretty steep. But I know Board Game Geek, they have someone selling it new for $45. You can get it at Card House for $48.95 and Miniature Market for $49. So about $45 to $49 is the sweet spot for pricing.
All right, so let's talk about quality of pieces. So you have some very colorful dice. You have some wooden bits. You do get a miniature for each of the player colors. I think they're all the same kind of miniature. They're just in the different colors. It looks like a priest of some sort. Yeah. Then you have these little dice holders. These basically are your spots for the amount of workers that you get, and your dice are obviously your workers in this game. You have a lot of cardboard chits. Now, we've used our upgraded tokens that we got from Stonemaier for this, but you normally get a bunch of more cardboard chits. So overall, I think there's a lot of bits to this game, which is probably some of the cost.
Well, there's also on the board, there's the custom dials that are, they're the same, but they're
plastic custom dials.
You interchange them, so they don't stay in the board. You take them out and replace them.
Right. Now, how hard... They're just little...
Yeah, I think they're going to eventually wear the board.
That's eventually going to wear.
That's the only concern, because you're taking them in and out every time you play.
Yeah, so that one's maybe a... So overall, though, quality, I mean, I think it's okay. There's nothing absolutely great, but there is a lot of bits. So I'm willing to give this probably a 6.5. What do you think?
I'm probably a 7, just because I like the dice. I like the component of those dials, even though it does, I don't think, a practical design taking them in and out. The cardboard is linen finished, which is,
I didn't notice that. So
yeah, as are the cards. The cards are all linen finished as well. The tokens for the pieces are really the biggest disappointment that would pull it down. Otherwise, I probably would have given it higher. But having the cardboard white tokens with just a little icon on it.
Oh, these are pretty...
Very disappointing.
I didn't really fully realize how crappy these were because we mostly played with
that's why I immediately got out the Stonemaier set, because I know I don't want to play with these, and I have representation for each one of those.
Yeah, and so now looking at these...
Yeah, they're really bad.
You know what's funny is throughout the game, I was like, man, these iconographies doesn't really match these very well, but at least I know what they are. Listen, sometimes, I don't know, I'm in La La Land. All right, so now let's move on to theme. So the theme is that you are building a civilization, right? And
yeah, it's kind of an odd
but
theme,
there's a space.
Because it's like, it's a futuristic, primitive civilization. So you've got, it's almost like if the Ancient Aliens TV show, where they think that aliens helped the Egyptians build their civilization.
So like Eternals?
It could be. Yeah, you could go for that. Yeah.
I'm running from
those 3 people that have seen that movie, they got that reference. But yeah, no.
I think more than 3 people, maybe 30.
Yeah, okay. Well, either way, that's what it really is kind of like. It's an Ancient Aliens situation where the aliens came and helped civilization start out. So you got these futuristic devices in a primitive land.
Right. So you're trying to encourage them to do to do cool things. All right. So is it heavy on theme?
Not
really. Is it okay? Yeah. I mean, the art's all right. There's nothing. I wouldn't call it spectacular or anything, but I wouldn't say it's bad.
It's also, the theme is kind of all over the place because it's not just
Yeah.
one ancient civilization, because you've got the Roman Colosseum, and then you've got the zodiac signs, which would not be, well, I guess, I don't know if the zodiac signs were Roman or Greek, but then you've got the pyramid on the cover, which there was really no reference to the Egyptians that I saw in the game.
We got Mayan temples on the board, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
So it's kind of like every ancient civilization is represented.
Right.
In
Well,
some
and then
way.
you look at the time. Listen, I think there was a lot of stuff going on. Well, I think depending on the player characters. So, like, mine is obviously Asian, where yours is more somewhere else.
Some African culture.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's kind of all over the place. It's basically as if all of ancient civilizations on Earth were influenced.
I mean, obviously,
I don't think this is representing Earth. This is just it says this planet. It doesn't say Earth, but it could be.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of similarities to the things you see on Earth.
Yes,
there's the Roman Colosseum.
There's a forum reference for in here for the
obelisks, magistrates. So there's some stuff. Overall, I don't think it's super heavy. I didn't really get heavily into the theme.
No.
So for me, I would say 6.5, 7. I'm not.
Yeah, I think 6.5 is probably where I'm at. I don't think it's. I mean, the art's pretty, so I'll give it that. I think that the little buildings on the art on the tiles are really pretty. The board is kind of basic, actually. The board was not the most attractive board in the world. Mm-hmm. But I do like the art on each of the player characters. They're really nice. And I like the cards, the Zodiac cards are really cool looking. So, it's a mixed bag, and I think 6.5 is about where I'm at.
All right, so let's move on to rules.
The rules are very lengthy for this game. It's
I remember falling asleep while he was reading them.
It's a 28-page rule book, but it does have a nice front and back cover. It's got nice art.
They do have a cheat sheet, though.
Yeah, they have a little cheat card.
Hey, it was enough. It worked.
Yeah, I mean, the gameplay isn't that difficult once you actually get into it.
Yeah.
But the rule book just takes you a while to get to the point on them all. The setup was kind of confusing. There's a lot of stuff that you have to get out of bags. Everything's individually bagged, and there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of bits. So getting it set up each time takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But once you get playing, it's not complex. There's a bunch of score tracks on the board, and you got your player area where you're building, and that's basically the main domains. So, all in all, the rulebook is effective. It's just a little long. I think it could have been a little more succinct. I believe there's a little bit of wordiness in it, just like my review of this rulebook probably. So I'm going to go ahead and give it 7.5. I think it does its job well, and there wasn't really any questions too much or confusion when we played it. So it's easy enough to pick up and learn.
All right, so let's move on to actual gameplay. So essentially, using the handy dandy cheat sheet. All right, so you're trying to build a civilization, and you do that by first you can visit an encounter site. So the encounter site is where the different space stations are located, and they have different functions on each one. It ranges from getting different resources to completing an action, whether that be building or to go up the military track, if you will, or to go up the spiritual tracks. This is where I'm going to say it's spiritual because I got nothing else for it. And it does have to do with the Cancer, Gemini, things like that.
Well, yeah, the Zodiacs.
So the Zodiac. So I'm going to go with spiritual on that front. But then you also have a component where you build your city or domain area here. So there are some building components as well. So you gain those resources to do the different things. But there's also this worker management piece of the different dice. So, like I said, you open up. So most of these, you only actually start with 2 dice during the game. The rest are locked that you slowly open up. And one of those actions that you can do is to grow a population. You spend wheat, you open up, you put it over here, and that gives you an open slot.
Well, you get a slot. You don't get the die.
Well, I already had the die. Sorry.
So, yeah, you get
there you go.
You get a container for a die.
You get a container for the die, and then you get the dice through different actions. But you visit an encounter space. So 6s are a little bit different. than the other dice. So if I'm going to play, for example, a 4, I'm going to look at my different encounter tiles. They're called motherships when they're making reference to the games. So I have a 4. I cannot place this 4 on a 6 or a 5, but anything lower I can. So I can do the 4, 3, 2, or 1 on this. And my die is red. So if I go to the matching mother station, I actually get 2 actions, the red action and one of my choice. Okay. So obviously, well, the red is currently a 1. So I'm going to go there to complete that action. I can choose either one of each resource, or I can choose to pay green to increase some of my other dice that go up the military track. And then so I get to do one of those 2 because I have a 4. Or 3 or 2. It doesn't really matter unless it's a 6. So we'll explain what the difference is for 6 here in a second. And then you get to do the red piece of that dice. And the red dice special ability is you spin a scroll and you get to go up the military track, or you get to pillage. Okay, so it's either or. And we'll talk about.
And then the first thing you do after you do that is turn the dial. So it makes it more difficult the next time someone goes there.
Right. And let me tell you, there's a couple times where neither one of us could play dice because all of them were level 6s and we didn't have those dice. And it sucked. I had to throw away like 4 dice that way. It was so lame. But it happens, right? So you got to be aware of that. So you do the encounter. Now, if I had a 6 a little bit different because, okay, so this is 6 orange. I'm going to go to the orange area. You don't have to go to the orange, but to get all the special bonuses, you do have to use that. So I have a 6. I get both actions as well as the orange space. So I get a total of 3 actions. Now, the thing about 6s is when you do finally pass and recall all your workers, your 6s then retire.
Well, so they become guardians.
Listen, they're retiring. They old. They've worked really hard. They've got an all
I resemble that.
Hey, they want to be on the porch saying, "Get out my lawn," okay? Like that's their goal.
That's my dream in life.
I know that's your dream in life.
Mm-hmm.
We need a porch first. Okay, so you have to keep working. All right. So, and we'll talk about recall in a second, but understand that they're going to get recalled and they'll end up going, and you'll get victory points for retiring one of each color. And then if you retire additional ones, and if you already have the color, then you get the same of the last die that was placed. So
also they give you a special purpose or ability with your
right, and we haven't talked about this worker.
Yeah.
So this worker is special in the fact that it don't have a color. It can go anywhere and it can do the one thing until it has advisors. So once it has advisors, it also gets that special color. So for example, if I go to the blue die, because I have the blue die here, I get the blue action. Same thing with the purple, red, yellow, and orange, because I have all of them by the end of the game. I did because I'm awesome. Yeah. Not like Randy.
Yeah, I didn't have a blue one, which is kind of funny that it was the blue one that I was missing.
I thought that was kind of odd, but I just let it go. All right, so and eventually, so this one gets to have a lot. So as the game goes on, you have a lot more versatility with this one. You always do because it doesn't have a color. You only get to do one thing, and it doesn't have a level either, so it can go on anything. It can go on 6s, 5s, 4, whatever. So this, it becomes very more useful as you go throughout the game and you build up your, your abilities.
It's important to note that the actions on these don't block the space. Any
Correct.
Number of dice can go to any one location, as well as any of these boss guys.
So but it matters about the strength that on placing.
Yes, because every time something goes there, it turns the dial. So that dial could rotate all the way around each time. Now, if it hits 6, it will come back to a 1. So,
but you have to have something 6 to place on it, because let me tell you something.
Or the boss guy,
which I used a lot of times to do a 6, and then you would steal my 1s. I got really mad. And here's the thing, though. We did not use these tokens. Okay, so these tokens allow you to take 2 actions back to back. I get them, and I don't ever use them.
I don't find them very useful.
No, but I think about it now, and there was one time I got rid of the 6, and I had a 1, but you took my 1, and I'm like, I should have played this, so I could have played the 6 and the 1 back to back. But no, I forgot I had it. I forgot I had it. That could have had me won the game. We weren't that close, but I can pretend. All right, so, but yeah, so that was the thing that I could have done. Well, you wouldn't have went to that thing. You would have used me a dice.
Is this all one sentence?
Yes.
Okay.
For me. Anyway, so, okay. So you visit the encounter. That's the encounter spaces. You can do the different actions. We do need to go over what you can, I guess, do. So building a building, and let's do the arena first because that's the easiest. Arena is very straightforward. So if you do the red circle action, which is the arena, basically you can go up. It also, most arena actions also have a pillage and or. So you can either choose to go up the track. If it's an or, you either choose to go up the track for the arena, or you take the benefit that is at the location that you are already at. Now, if you're both, you obviously go up and gain that benefit.
Yeah.
Now, though, at the end of the round, you go back to the very last space above one of the blue square icons. And so you end up losing ground every round. So it's basically you restarting that season in that same grouping that you were in. You were lightweights. You want to eventually go to the heavy battles, like scimitar batters. Okay, so you go up that track. You do end up getting 9 victory points if you finish the end. Why didn't you finish the end, Randy?
Because I was more interested in the 70 victory points I was going to get from maxing out over on the other track.
You didn't have to do that.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't have to.
I had to do it the first game, and I wasn't allowed to because Dodd ended the game in a rush. So I had to make up for it this game since you allowed me to do it.
Oh, my goodness.
So
I should have ended it when I
Now,
saw
one thing
it.
on this military track is when you do the attack or pillage action, you get 1 victory point for each one of the squares that you've passed. In this case, with me, I would have gotten 5. And then 1 for each person behind you on the track. So I would have gotten 1 for you. So that would have been 6 every time I did an attack.
Yeah, that was kind of lame.
So this track can actually yield a lot of victory points in succession. The thing is a lot of times it's a trade-off. You either move up the track or you take the attack. There's one space that lets you get both. So, getting that perk of the attack. There's also some buildings, I should say, the red ones, that will give you the ability to attack as well and move up the track. And I took advantage of that later in the game.
Yep, kind of lame.
But also the benefits of the spaces you're on get better the further along you are on the track. When we were talking about resources earlier, there's 4 resources. 3 are basic. There's wisdom, stone, and wheat, or maybe use food, bread. There's also gold, which is not a basic resource. You can't get that when you normally can pick one of the resources. You have to get that through an action specifically giving you gold.
Yeah, so it can be used as a wild, or it can be used specifically when gold is called out. And there are a couple of actions that are only gold, and we'll call those out as we talk about them. All right, so we've talked about visiting an encounter. Oh, so we have the arena. So now let's talk about this, the tracks for the Capricorn, Cancer, Gemini.
The different zodiacs.
The different zodiacs. They're called temples, actually. It's the temple tracks.
Temples.
So the temple tracks, so that one's actually pretty straightforward. A lot of the actions are spend a stone, move up on 2 of the track, or, get rid of a stone, move up 1 on the track, or different things like that. Or you'll get buildings that allow you to go up on the track, spend a gold to go up the track, whatever this case may be. But the person at the end of the round that has the most in the temple gets a special ability based on the track that they're higher up.
Cool zodiac cards. They have 1 for each 12 of the 12 zodiac. At the beginning of the game, you shuffle them and randomly get 3 to put into the game.
Some are better than others.
Yeah.
Because you take them all.
Yeah, we have all 3 of them were pretty good. It had specific needs for each one, but they're pretty powerful.
You kept taking the one I needed, like every single time. I only got to use it once.
Yeah, well, the spaces that let you progress on those tracks, one of the spaces is really cool. You pay a stone and you get to move up 2 on one track of your choice and automatically take the card. So these get passed back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to want to sleeve these because of that. There's only 3 in the game at any given point in time, but you transition those a lot throughout the game.
So there's that. All right. So then the last thing is to build there's gaining a die. Gaining a die is pretty straightforward. You grab a dice, and depending on how far up the dice is, how many knowledge you have to pay to be able to have access to that die.
Wisdom.
Same thing with the building track. It starts, you need 0 wisdom, but you slowly increase. They eventually go up as they get taken, so you have to have less wisdom to be able to do that. However, you also have to have stone costs. So for building a building, there's a stone
On each tile, there's a
each
different...
tile. Now, I will say this one's a little bit different in the fact that one of each color has to be out, both with the dice and with this. Because a lot of times we get used to just pulling out of the pile and getting kind of random. It's random in the sense that it's a random purple coming out because a purple was taken, but it is not random in the fact that you get an even distribution of colors, which at any given time I thought is actually kind of nice. Because I know a lot of games that you get stuck with like 6 blues and it's like everyone's
there's
looking at each other
always
and being
one
like,
of each color in this.
I don't want blues, right?
Every time you take one, everything gets moved up and the new one comes in at the bottom of the track.
Right. So I pay the cost to have this. And then I'm going to go build...
I just totally destroyed your...
You totally destroyed my village!
Well, your box was there, and then I was there, and then I kind of did lots of damage to it.
Holy moly, you did some damage.
Move this over for you, and then let you use it for your example.
Alright, so, okay, well, that's good enough. Here, I want to finish this one so I can get points. Alright, so I bought a blue building, and I'm going to place it here, okay? And so when I place it, I do get the action that is on the tile. So in this case, I get to gain 2 victory points because I have 2 obelisks in my city. The one I'm placing and the one elsewhere. Okay, so I claim my 2 victory points. Now, when you go to close a district, so this is another action that you can take during your turn. Instead of spending a die to go to a location, you're going to spend a die to close this location.
Well, it can't be from there. It has to be from one
I know. So I'm just getting the right color. So there you go. I have this blue 4 here, so I'm going to take that blue 4 and I'm going to put it in between this grouping. Now, the problem is when I place a blue dice, it only triggers the blue buildings that are adjacent to it, okay?
Or the gray starters, they're neutral.
Or the gray starter, yes. So you have to pick and choose which dice you're going to place down and which buildings you're going to trigger because you're not going to trigger all of them. So you almost want to put a lot of colors that are the same together, but then you don't get the bonuses for closing districts. So if you get districts that meet certain designs, you get additional victory points. And it's quite substantial. So it's 12 victory points for this 3 pattern. That's a lot of victory points in this game. To kind of note, what did you end up with? 2... You didn't quite hit 2. I hit 2.
I was over 2. That was almost at 3.
Okay, so you were almost at 3. I was at 2.5. So I mean, still, but it's a chunk of change. Now, every time you get this, so the first time you get 12, but then every time after that you get the same design, you get the lower level, which is 7 points in this particular case.
I thought that was one of the clunkiest pieces of the game, honestly, because
you're only going to do one thing. Once.
Well, no, I mean, it's not that so much as each one of these cards starts the game out with 2 gold tokens above it, and whoever's the first person to complete it not only gets the victory points on it, but they get the 2 gold.
Correct.
The thing is if you complete that again, that same pattern, you get the lower number. But if someone else completes it for the first time, they're supposed to get the first number, the bigger number.
Right, because it's the first time they did it.
But you have to keep track of that because you have to look back at your city to make sure you've already completed it. There's no marker.
I can see that working.
I mean, normally in games like that, the first person gets the victory point, the bigger victory point, and any subsequent people get the lower number.
Right.
And it's not that way in this game.
No.
So it's a little clunky.
They probably should have a little bit of a chit or something you put on there.
Yeah, to mark that you've already done it.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a thing.
Yeah, so that to me was one of the clunkier pieces of this game. But the in-game conditions, one of the main in-game conditions is if somebody has taken, once all of the gold is gone from above each of these cards, and that it's based on player count, how many of those are in the play.
Yeah, the other thing that closes out the game is if you cannot replace one of the dice that is missing in the dice pool, then it ends. So basically, if you ran out of reds or ran out of purples, and you can't fulfill to have one of each color, then that also triggers the end of the game. And then
there's 2 other conditions. The other one being one person has reached the top on all 3 of those. Which is what you ended ours. Well, no, we ended this first, but by the end of that round, I also moved up there.
Because you suck.
The third one is if we haven't got to towers yet, but at the beginning of the game, when you're putting these cards out, these bonus cards have towers pictured on them. And for each one of those towers, you take that count of the color and plus 1, and you put those tokens on the board. And those towers are allowed as a multiplier to be built that you have to pay gold for. That's the only currency that you can buy them with, to build a tower that is a multiplier for how many pips you have of a given color in your closed dice over here.
Yeah, so one of the other actions is to build a tower. So this is where you specifically can only use gold. One of the areas that you can specifically spend gold. So the first time that you buy one of a color, it is 1 gold. The second time you buy something of the same color, you pay 2 gold. The third time is 3. So it gets more, the multiplier gets more expensive as you go throughout. So just being aware of that, it does get more expensive, but the return is quite significantly high.
It can be,
right?
if you use a lot of the same color dice to trigger when you do your closing, then yes, you can get a lot of points off of that.
Well, and here's the thing is like when we played with Dodd, he got a lot of points
that's how he
on
scored
this.
Most of his points.
He scored a lot of points. However, I didn't. I was trying to figure out how to do that, and I couldn't. I mean, I know there's a strategy. I got to work through that one.
Well,
but I got my victory points mostly from retiring dice and, collecting all of my civilization tokens. So I was able to get that through the game.
Well, I got quite a few, but I could have gotten more if I would have used more red dice, but because I built up a 3-level tower, and then I got 11 pips on my dice, so I got 33 points off of my red. If I kept putting more red dice out, I would have got a lot more points.
Well, so here's the thing is like, okay, so he put 6s down, and I was like, okay, that's a good idea, but here's the thing that I could retire a 6, and I get 15 points for it.
Yeah.
So it's like
so
I would need at least 3 tokens for it to be worth it to me.
Yeah.
To not just have it retire.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. And that's what I like about this game is there's a lot of ways to score. It's not a one strategy that's going to pay off.
Right, because you wouldn't have gotten 15 because you bounced a couple and you only got 10 because of where your stuff was at. Versus me, I collected one of each color first, got them thing, and then I could just grab whatever. And so for me, I think that's a legit start. I think I should have not messed with so much the higher, because I had 1s and stuff I could have used instead of using 6s, because for me it wasn't worth it. So I think, and exactly, but like he won by playing all the points, and then but you played a lot by getting the military, and that's what, because I was winning, and then you got the military thing going, and you crushed me along with this track. I think there's a lot to do, and I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And that's what makes this fun, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun game. I think, like I said, I think there's a little bit of quirkiness with some of it. It's like the setup of these and the end game with these bonuses. I like the concept. I think it was just they should have done something to market in some way, or made it so the first player gets the big vote score, and then everybody else just gets the lower one, because you can tell when the gold is gone. Obviously, somebody's gotten that one. But yeah, I think that's the quirkiest part. Other than that, it's a pretty solid game. I mean, I like this the fact that there's this track for scoring over here. You got this,
you love it. It's point salad, babe.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to play this again, and I don't want to worry about building buildings, which is really hard for me because I like to build buildings.
Well, I mean, I think I built more buildings than you did, actually.
I know, but I kept running out of resources.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's key. There's a lot of resource management in this, and making sure you have the right resources at the right time. I mean, there was one time I kept building wisdom, and I had so much wisdom, I had nothing to do with it. And then, suddenly I needed it all, and I spent it all. But
he made me get out the cardboard chits.
I take away all the good ones.
Yeah, I know. I was like, hey, you're the one that's hogging it, but. It turned out I actually really enjoyed this game. I'm glad we got to play it twice. I would not be opposed to playing it again. But I don't know if I'm going to chance, because I don't know, 2 games in a week. Holy cow, that might be a bit much for Randy. He's ready for something new. Well, we had an absolute. We got to score it. We got to score it before I close out. See, listen, guys, I'm just trying to play this again before we call it a night. Give it a score, Randy.
I'm probably going to give this I'm going to say 7.5, maybe 8. I'll give it an 8. I'll be generous. Because there's a lot about I like. It's the fiddliness of that one aspect really kind of put me off.
Yeah, it must be really bugging you, because I figured you would really enjoy it.
It felt like if someone could. There's so many ways to end this game that someone can just totally destroy someone who's going for a long game strategy very easily.
Well, I mean, that's true with Terraforming Mars. That's true.
Well, yeah, but this one, it feels like it can happen really quick. Because getting these patterns, if you're just building buildings and going the building strategy, you can do that pretty quick. And that's what Dodd did, especially since it's only when the gold is gone. So if you're going for one pattern, Dodd's going for another, and I'm going for another, 3 of them go away right away, once you get it. So the end game can happen very quick, as it did when we played.
Yeah, but that might be because of 3 players.
Right, because when we played 2 players, both of us managed to get up this track, whereas when we played 3 players, we only got like 3 steps up here.
Yeah, but we were both kind of focusing on
if you're devoting your energy to that track, it's not going to pan out if somebody rushes the game. So I think that it's kind of dangerous with more players to do the track. So I think there's a little bit of a balance issue when you start getting more players.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have to accommodate that. It's just like when you play Agricola, if you're playing a 4 or 5 player, you need to focus on food. Otherwise, there's not enough food to go around, right?
Yeah.
So, especially 5 player, you better make sure you get a fireplace and a freaking oven. Otherwise, you're SOL, right? So, I think different players, I think you're going to have to focus on different things when you play this game. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, it isn't.
Gives some deviation.
It isn't, but with Agricola, the difference there is Agricola adds in more cards when you go to
Correct.
3 or 4 or 5 players. So it gives more variety. Whereas this, it's a one-trick pony. And it's taking away one of those scoring options. So I actually preferred this playing at 2-player than I did to the 3-player because it felt like some of the actions were less powerful. But, we only played it as a sample of 1 that first time, so I'm still thinking, I want to give it more tries as far as multiple players.
I'm willing to
but I think I like this one as a 2-player better because it felt like you had more opportunity to strategize.
I do think me and you will end up playing this as a 2-player because I think it worked really, really well. And you would think most games like this are always the opposite, though. The more players, the better. No, this one, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it works fine as a 2-player.
The only problem I have, and I think this is the problem with the 2-player, we ended up with a lot more 6s because we only had one.
Yeah, that's true.
1 power. Like this one powerful dude that can skip those.
Well, it didn't help that every time I rolled the die to put 1 back to replace in the middle, I got a 1.
Yeah, what is up with that? 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. Really,
yeah.
Randy?
Well,
really?
To be fair, you rolled 1 of those.
The purple.
Yes.
Because it was mad because I didn't choose it.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So no, but I mean, I think that's the other issue though is having fewer players is you get kind of hung up.
Yeah.
Up there. So there's that. You gave it an 8.
Yeah, I'm 7.5 to 8. I'll go ahead and be generous because there are a lot of things I do like about it, but it just feels like there's a little bit of fidgetiness. It doesn't feel quite cohesive like some of the better games.
There's a lot of interesting mechanisms in here that make it a little bit different, that call them out. I do agree with that. You've got, I've always liked dice worker placement kind of thing. I like resource management. So this ticks all the boxes, but part of me understands what you're saying because there is so much going on. You can't do everything.
No.
And I think you want to do everything. And I don't know if that's what makes it clunky, is because you're like, I just never have enough to do what I want. But maybe it's because we're stretched so thin.
I don't think it's that. I think it's because at higher player counts, some of the paths become less beneficial, or at least they are going to be much harder to be beneficial. Like moving up the tracks, you only score when you, at the end of game on these tracks, the lowest 2 of your scores. So you have to balance them. You have to keep them all going out.
I mean, that's a lot of points.
Yes, it's a lot of points if you get them all up there. If you've got 1 track way here at the bottom, it's not worth very much. It's like 7 points. And when we played with 3 players, we only got up to 7. I mean, we didn't get up any higher.
You got up to 7. I got up to 3.
Yeah. So me
and a 0.
Me spending all my energy to move up those tracks didn't pan out at all.
Yeah, but we also didn't know what we were doing, and we were spreading ourselves thin. I think if you strictly focus, there are 2 different tiles that let you do that. So basically, you go get the stone, and then you go to the next, and then you go to the other one, and then that's what you do, right? Like I think if you focused on one strategy, you could get away with it. And I think when you get to the higher player count, that's what you're gonna have to do. But again, We only played it at 2 and 3 player. I would like to see this at 4. I hope we get to play it again soon before I forget about it. All right, so basically, you gave it an 8. I'm giving it an 8. It's a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed hanging out with us, and we'll catch you guys again later. Bye. Bye.